Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this variation on a granny square. I call it the Twinkling granny square because if you use contrasting colours between the first round and the second round, you get this kind of almost like star-like shape in the middle. It's just a 3-round granny square, and for these I have used a double knit or a heavier sport weight yarn with a 4mm hook. You can of course use a different thickness of yarn with a corresponding hook size. For example, you could use a worsted weight with maybe a 5mm hook, or even a 4-ply with a 3.5mm hook. So we're going to start with a slip knot loop on our hook, then we're going to chain 4, then we're going to slip stitch into the first chain so that we're joining to form a ring. Now we're going to do a series of single crochets and chain 3s, but we're not going to start with a chain 1 because we're trying to minimise the sort of lump at the beginning of the round. So we're going straight into the ring, so make sure you're going into the middle of the ring you've made and make a single crochet. Then you're going to chain 3 and you're going to single crochet into the ring again. I'm going to chain 3 and single crochet into the ring. So you're going to do that 7 times. So chain 3, that's single crochet, we've got 3 loops, 1, 2, 3, single crochet, we've got 4 loops, 1, 2, 3, single crochet, we've got 5 loops, 1, 2, 3, single crochet, we've got 6, so you might have to keep shunting them round. You can be quite rough moving them round. I lost count now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, chain 3, now we've got 7, we want 8 in total, so we're going to chain 3 and then you're going to slip stitch to join into that first single crochet you made. Then you're going to cut the yarn and pull that through. So that's the end of round 1. You should have 8 chain 3 loops. I'm actually going to show you another way to finish off the round because I'm not a big fan of ending rounds in slip stitches because it kind of leaves a bit of a lump that I'm not that keen on. You don't have to do it that way, it's entirely up to you, it's personal choice. If you're happy with the slip stitch, then carry on. It is a lot quicker than the way that I do it. So I'm just about to start making the 8th loop, so I'm only going to chain 2 and then I'm going to pull the live loop, cut the yarn, I'm going to pull the live loop until I've pulled it out completely. Then I'm going to get a wool or darning needle and I'm going to find that first single crochet stitch that I made in the round and I'm going to go through both loops of that stitch. I'm going to get this tail end and I'm going to thread it onto the needle and then thread it through the first single crochet stitch. Then I'm going to go through the top of that second chain that I made, through the middle of it. So if you look at the chain, you've got a left loop and a right loop and then the back ridge. I'm literally going to dive down through the middle of that stitch. My thread's come undone. So what I've actually done there is with that sewn bind off, I've actually created the third chain with a sewn stitch. So then I'm going to just go down into the single crochets of that I've done in the ring, and I'm just going to pull that through there. So don't want to pull it too tight, because I want it to be the same size as the other chains. So you can see there I've just mimicked that stitch, and now I'm going to just sew this back the other way to secure it. So what I tend to do is, if I've got a very short bit of thread, I just thread it back with the eye of the needle, making sure you're catching in a stitch so that you're not undoing the work you've just done, the stitch you've just done. So while I'm here, I might as well sew in this other tail end. It's a good idea to do it as you go along. Save yourself a job later. And then what you'll see is your little motif doesn't have any unsightly slip stitch joints. Let's start round 2. So we're going to start in any chain 3 space. It's actually best not to work in the last one you just made. It's quite difficult to see which one it was, but it doesn't really matter. Actually, just go into any chain 3 space. So insert the hook, hold a tail end of the new colour to the back, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you're going to chain 5. And then in this same chain 3 space, you're going to put in 2 double crochets. So just as a reminder, a double crochet is a yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop. You've got 3 on your hook, yarn over, draw off 2, yarn over, draw off 2. So we're going to put 2 double crochets in there. And what you'll notice is this chain 5 is actually going to be counting as a 1 double crochet and a chain 2 space. So that's a corner that we've just made there, or a partial corner. Into the next chain 3 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. Into the next chain 3 space, we're going to make another corner. So you just have to be a little bit careful with these chain 3 spaces, that you're actually going into the space and not sort of just catching a random bit of the chain. So you're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and another 2 double crochets. And there you can see I've just made another corner. Into the next chain 3 loop, we're going to make a side, the side of the square, which is just 2 doubles. Into the next chain 3 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, so another corner. You can guess the next one, 2 double crochets, in the next one another corner, which is 2 double crochets, chain 2, double crochets. Last side, chain 2 double crochets. And now this is something that you need to remember, and even I sometimes get ahead of myself and make a mistake here. You need to remember that this was only a partial corner. So we need to put one more double crochet in the first corner you're in, because remember this chain is counting as one stitch. So I like to do corners this way because that chain that is imitating a double crochet is less visible because it's sort of in the middle of there. If you, when you start a round with a chain as a stitch, sometimes when you join it, it can look quite obvious. So there's two ways of finishing this round. I'll show you the quick way, which is find the third chain from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, treat it like a normal stitch, so make sure you're going through both loops of the chain, and then slip stitch. So you grab the yarn, pull it through that stitch, and then also through the stitch through your live loop on your hook. Trim the yarn, leaving a tail long enough to sew in. I have very short ends because I like to save yarn. That's, if you're not used to that, then leave a longer tail, and then yarn over and draw that tail end through to fasten off. So again, as you know, I do not like slip stitch joins, so I'm going to switch that out for a sewn bind off. So let's just go back to the point where we've finished the stitch, we've cut the yarn. Now we're going to pull that live loop right out. We're going to get our darning needle, I'm going to thread this on, and this time, because you're making an extra stitch, you don't want to go into the third chain because you'll actually make an extra stitch. So you go into the fourth chain, 1, 2, 3, 4. Go through the front to back of the stitch just like you would with your crochet hook. I'm going to turn the work over. I'm going to look down onto those stitches. I'm going to have a look here where the piece I've just thread, where it's coming up out of this last stitch I just made. I'm going to go down through there, catch the back ridge of the stitch, come down, pull that mock stitch I've just made until the size of it matches the other stitches. Can you see it there? And now I'm just going to very gently whip stitch it across these two, across the chain and these two stitches. So let's thread that back on. So we're going to work from right to left. So I'm just catching a back ridge of the chain, back ridge of the double crochet. So only catching one part of the stitch. I'm just quite gently doing that. I'm going to put in a couple of whip stitches. It's come undone because of my obsession with short ends. Like that. And now I'm going to finish off by sewing that end into this little congested corner. Also sewing this end back. We caught it in when we were crocheting, but I want it to go back one more time through this congested area just to make sure it doesn't come out. So I'm going to catch another stitch there before I sew it back, otherwise I'm just undoing what I've done. Ready to trim. Careful not to cut your actual granny square, that's quite annoying. And there you have your motif after round 2. Now we're on to round 3. Let's join this new colour into any corner except the one where you've just ended the round at round 2. insert the hook into the chain 2 space, have a tail end of yarn at the back, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. Just hold the tail end secure at the back of the work while you crochet. Now you're going to chain 5 again. And this time you're going to put 3 double crochets into this corner. Look at this yarn, it's lovely, the green, beautiful. And then you're going to put 2 double crochets between each of these clusters on the side. So you're going between the clusters. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, same into the next space between the clusters, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. I'm going to make another corner, and for round 3 the corner is 3 double crochets. And a chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then the same again along this side, 2 double crochets between each set of clusters. So that's 2 lots of 2 double crochets. Along the second side, another corner, that's 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then 3 double crochet. That's 3. Same again this side, 2 double crochet between the clusters, and another set of 2. And you've probably memorized the corner already. That's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Coming up to the last side, 2 double crochets, between each set of clusters. And now remember, this is just a partial corner we've done here, so I need to put 2 more double crochets into this first corner. And for the final round I'm going to do, you can either slip stitch into the 3rd chain or a sewn bind off. For final rounds I always like to do a sewn bind off. I just think it's just looks much better, and when you come to sewing things together you haven't got those annoying slip stitched knots to contend with. So I've trimmed the yarn, I'm going to pull my live loop, I'm going to thread my needle, this time I'm going to find the 4th chain because I'm making a stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you treat that chain just as if it was a crochet stitch. Go through the front loop and the back loop, and then you've got the 3rd loop of the chain, the ridge at the back of the needle. So you're going through there. I like to flip the work. Take a close look at that last stitch you made. Have a look where the thread's coming out from the middle and go down that exact same spot. Check that the mock stitch you've made matches the size of the others. That's perfect. And then do a couple of whip stitches, just catching in the back part of the stitch, and don't put it too tight because you don't want it to distort your stitches. And now I'm going to sew this end into the corner. Make sure you catch a leg of a stitch, go along and go back the other way. Pull everything to match the tension. Now I'm just going to sew in this other end. It's always a good idea to do this as you go along, otherwise you end up with a really nasty job. Hundreds of ends. Let's trim that. There you go. There's your little twinkling granny star. There you go. There's your little twinkling granny square.